thanks. All right, so here we are with the American Association of Food Safety and Public Health Veterinarians YouTube/podcast, season 1. I'm optimistic about having a season 2. This is episode number 5 with Dr. van.brass. And welcome, Van. I am just delighted to have a little time here to talk with you today. Here we are on a beautiful day. I'm out in Washington State on Whidbey Island. Where are you right now?
Hi, good afternoon. Thank you for me. I am in Columbus, Ohio. I've been here since October of 2020. The weather's a little bit warmer. I still have on my jacket, but it's a little.
Oh, you just muted. Let me ask you to unmute. For some reason, it was a little bit funny there. So you're in Columbus, Ohio. I didn't realize that that you were actually over in Columbus. I knew you were on the East Coast, so very nice. And let's start at the beginning. I love to hear how people came to the decision of becoming a veterinarian in the first place, because, you know, everybody comes to veterinary medicine in their own time and in their own way. And this is really a story about the different pathways that veterinary medicine can take in someone's career. And I'd love to hear how yours started. How about you? What did you do to start with veterinary medicine?
Well, even when I was young, when in elementary school, I knew where I was going, headed down a certain path. And so I got a chance to go to an agricultural summer program right before my senior year of high school. And it was really enlightening. I thought that I was going into medicine, human medicine, because I really enjoyed science and biology. And I loved animals, but I just never made the connection. A large reason of that, because, as you can tell, I'm African-American, I'm Black, and it's just not a lot of Black veterinarians out there. And so in my neighborhood growing up, I grew up in a nice middle-class neighborhood, but we definitely did not have a veterinarian in the neighborhood. When we did have to go to the veterinarian, we would go to the other side of town. So it was just something that I never really imagined. And then on top of that, at that point, my really only idea of veterinary medicine was really small animal medicine. And so that was nothing that I was particularly interested in. And so I go to this summer program, and I'm a city boy, and I get exposed to large animals.
I love it. Okay.
I get exposed to large animals and farm animals and food animals for the first time. And I was just awestruck, and it all came together and it all made sense. And if I loved animals and I loved science, what's the best way to bring those together than to be veterinary medicine? And so, and the program was at Southern University and A&M College, where I eventually undergraduate and majored in biology. But it helped to set the stage. I've been very fortunate in my life. Things have happened very serendipitously, and with a little bit of luck, a lot of stick-to-itiveness, perseverance and hard work, been able to build a nice career. And I just hope to be able to continue, but I hope I'm off to a decent start.
Oh, absolutely. So I see you went to school at Florida State University for vet school?
No, I graduated from the University of Florida.
University of Florida. Sorry. Oh my gosh, I should know better. I grew up in Miami Beach myself. So you grew up in Florida?
I am originally from Louisiana, Northeast Louisiana, Monroe.
Okay.
Yeah. And I went from there to Baton Rouge, Louisiana, where I graduated from Southern University and A&M College, historically Black institution. And I went from there. I knew I wanted to be a veterinarian, but like a lot of, it seems like, there's some of us who are able to go into vet school right after undergraduate, and there's some of us who need a little bit more time. So I definitely needed more time.
That was me.
And
yeah,
definitely. But fortunately, I had a scholarship with the USDA, and through AAFSPHV and Veterinary Services, I had been doing summer internships. And from there, I got offered a spot as a animal health technician in Fort Myers, Florida. And I did that for 3 years while I built my resume and while I built my application for vet school.
Oh, okay. So this is a part that people don't really understand, that whole process of trying to get into veterinary school. We talk about graduating and when we graduated, but the part about getting in is not really addressed. So you came from not only having an undergraduate degree, as well as then going specifically into being an animal health technician for a period of time. And because of building up, as you said, building up your resume to even get accepted into vet school. And so at that point you had residency in Florida, and that's how you ended up going to vet school there. Okay,
Yeah, I had
that
applied
makes
to a few
sense.
other institutions, but ultimately Florida was the best place for me.
Yeah, so nowadays there's about 30 veterinary schools. Can you believe that? Back when you
Yeah,
went to vet school, how many? What did
no, I
you?
mean, at that point it was about 28. So, it's slow going, but we're slowly building. I think, a lot of states have recognized the need for the shortage of veterinarians. And so they're trying to answer, but I think, it's good news and bad news. It's bad news that we have a shortage, but it's good news for us who are still working in the field. There'll always be plenty of work for us to do, I suppose.
Oh, I know. And so I'm really kind of interested in how did you even get into this USDA scholarship program? What's that all about?
Yeah, and I'm not sure. I don't believe that the program is still active, but there was a program, the USDA 1890 Scholars Program. There were individuals that were selected from some historical Black institutions who had their scholarships and their education, their undergraduate education, sponsored by the USDA. Though students were placed in different agencies based on our career goals and aspirations, and I got placed with veterinary services. And so for about 3 years during my summers, I would go and get experience, pretty much shadowing a VMO. I would go to slaughter plants, I would go
Yeah.
to the auctions. And, for somebody like me who hadn't really been exposed to that sort of thing, that was just valuable experience that I really needed to get my hands dirty.
Okay, yes, and that is quite remarkable. I didn't know that such a program existed. I saw that you had also gotten some other kind of scholarships. So what that told me was that you really were on the hunt for not only getting exceptional, unique experience, but also some scholarship support. And you found it. It's out there.
Definitely. And I feel like I'm in a good space because I'm still pretty young. So I'm not an old fogey who gets to talk, about the kids these days, don't know what they're doing. I think a lot of our students are very advanced in a lot of different ways. But I think even in my class, I wouldn't even say, students of this day. I would even say students in my class sort of had an expectation of things, sort of expecting that, the schools would provide job fairs that would help us get jobs. And, there were if there were scholarships, they would have to tell us about it for us to be able to know when to apply and everything. And I just took that position. I always wanted to be very active in, setting the stage for my career and my goals. And so I'm a little hungrier than most, a little bit more ambitious. I would go out and seek opportunities and try to connect with people because I think that people who try to get into veterinary medicine to avoid connecting with humans are sorely misguided. I think with any career, it's all about building relationships. And you got to be able to do it to be successful.
Okay, yeah, guilty. I think I'm fall into that group of liking animals more than some people. Not all people, but some. Yeah, okay, guilty as charged. But I didn't.
I mean, until those beautiful cows and steers start giving away scholarships, we might need to try to talk to some humans.
Right, less the cows who are, yeah, going to do it. But I'm thinking back to the time when I went through, and really you did rely on the high school and college to provide you information about scholarship, and you had to go to the library and search for all of that. At any rate, so nowadays we have the internet, and what you're talking about is also something that is incredible in terms of networking even prior to getting into veterinary school. And I think that people have to consider that, since this channel is talking about careers in veterinary medicine, it really does involve how you get there. And this networking that we've been talking about, that you took advantage of even prior to that, I guess that was partially from perhaps your instructors when you were in college. You found out about things, perhaps as well. I mean, you just didn't go on the internet and start searching, did you? Or what?
It was a combination of a lot of things. Now, don't get me wrong. now. I've been able to achieve some things. I've had a lot of help from a lot of different people from different walks of life, mainly from people who did not gain anything from helping me. So I'm extremely grateful for that. But I think they appreciated when they met me and connected with me. I think they appreciated my drive, my hunger, my ambition. I really wanted it, so they wanted to help me. And so one of the things that I've learned throughout my career is that before then, but even after, I think sometimes we consider the value of things based in money, right? And so maybe some values don't always come with money. I think anybody who you would ask who's a veterinarian would tell you that when you walk into a room, you're one of the most interested people in the room. You're definitely a person somebody wants to talk to. They don't want to talk to, they might want to talk to the doctor, but they want to talk to you first. They really want to talk to the lawyer, but they want to talk to the veterinary first. What I'm saying is that DVM gets you into so many different doors. It can get you into so many different doors if you know how to use it. You know what I mean? So I always try to use that sort of carte blanche to get into places and, try to connect and try to, forward, my goals that I tried to make. It was somewhat, ambitious, but also a bit geared towards the greater good, which I think is something people always appreciated.
Yeah, exactly. And what I heard you say, that your beginning interest was with food animals, what we in veterinary medicine will term as large animals versus small animals. So then I see that you were in USDA for a little while. And then what happened after that? After you graduated 2011? Yes, and you had a double. Did you do a dual degree? Is that what I'm seeing?
Oh my gosh. I was a group of the first set of students that was accepted into the DVM MPH dual degree program at University of Florida.
Oh my gosh, I admire that so much. I remember how hard it was for me to get through that school. I cannot conceive of having to go through with a dual degree, even more classes on my, my schedule. That's impressive. So,
yeah, but I mean, but at the same time too, it was a no-brainer. I knew, especially knowing that I was going to go into regulatory medicine or public health, that I was going to need an MPH eventually. And so rather than try to get out of school mode and wait around and get it, I got it at a cheaper rate. And it took a little bit more effort, but those dual degree programs are invaluable because that being able, I mean, on a grand scale, being able to train veterinarians specifically in the realm of One Health is extremely important. The need is there. But just secondly, the discount that you get with having those veterinary medicine credits count towards that degree is just invaluable. It was a no-brainer. And and it's one thing that I try to tell students because, we had about 8 students who were a part of that first class. I was the only one that went into public health immediately after school. 10 years later, about 4 of them have now gone into public health because they didn't like what private practice had to offer. And so being able to have options, being able to have flexibility is so important. So when you do things like you get that dual degree or you get that master's before, some vet students didn't get in or don't get in on their first time, but getting that master's degree, whether it be a master's of science in a research topic or in an MPH, is extremely invaluable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. I find that is very useful. And I did it on the old-fashioned way and went after it later on, but I used my GI Bill. So it's all a matter sometime of taking advantage of what's in front of you. So now that they're offering these dual degrees at the different veterinary school, you would advise that if at all possible, that students should take advantage of that, correct?
Absolutely. I think it can't hurt you at all. One of those pro tips that nobody will tell you is that a lot of times people just pay attention to letters. Letters mean as much as letters mean what they are. They're letters behind your name. Some people consider them valuable. You still have to have the chops. You still have to have the goods. But if those letters that get your foot into the door, so be it. And they get your foot in a lot of doors. So even if you aren't considering a career in public health directly into public health, just having that to fall back on, I think is valuable.
So is that what happened then? You went into the USDA right afterwards, or what did you do right after you graduated?
Well, I say sometimes you have to persevere. Sometimes you're a bit unlucky, but a lot of times you end up exactly where you're supposed to be. So I've been working and networking with a lot of people in APHIS and veterinary services during that time. This was in 2011, all the way up to the Eastern and Western, regional level. But politically at the time, when President Obama was in office, that was the first time that the Congress at that time, controlled by a certain party, instituted sort of a debt ceiling crisis. And so that caused an institutional shutdown and a widespread hiring freeze across the federal government. That happened right as I graduated.
Yeah, not only that, I believe that was right when we had the government shutdown. I was deployed to Kosovo at that time, and I did not get a paycheck during, I want to say it was something like the month of May, something like that. And we remember being like astonished, as active duty at that time. Like,
and that's one of those dirty secrets of, regulatory medicine of government work. Occasionally, sometimes politics get involved. And even it just as of last year, the year before last, we had a bit of a shutdown and we had a pay freeze for our workers. But at that time, I fresh coming out of school, and that's the job that I thought that was waiting for me. And so I had to go back home.
Okay. You thought you had that job waiting for you. So what did you end up doing right out of school?
I ended up going back home and I was substitute teaching.
Sure.
But and something to do when you're coming back to school, very humbling to do right in defense school. But networking, things happen for a reason. One of my professors that I work with in farms in the food medicine college and program came across a job announcement and kept me in mind, said, well, I think this might be good for you. And it was a job announcement that eventually led to a position with Sandia National Laboratories in Albuquerque, New Mexico.
So then you ended up moving to New Mexico for that job, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And that job was a bit different. That job actually was in what I would say is global health security. So I took a deep dive into biological laboratories. So the job entailed and was a part of a department that was developed back in 2001, right after the anthrax attacks. Congress came together and decided that we should be doing something about this, especially on the foreign level, away from home, because we were trying to sort of stop these threats before they came over here.
Bioterrorism here, right?
Yes.
And that was in
well, also bioterrorism, nuclear, chemical, all of those combined into cooperative threat reduction.
Okay.
And so that was a program started and funded by Congress to this day, and it brings together the Department of State and Department of Defense to try to work together to implement and institute projects that will try to reduce the risk of biological attacks throughout the world, but particularly in the United States.
Well, how did you do that at the laboratory?
Well, actually, we would do it twofold. We would actually do it two ways. We were concerned about threats that were inside of laboratories because, just a part of regulatory processes and programs as a part of general research, there are a lot of dangerous pathogens that might be stored at a laboratory. So it's important to have those stored in a safe and secure manner. But the difference between, the way that those are stored in maybe like a CDC funded lab and maybe like a national lab in a third world country are a bit different. And so we were really concerned about those sorts of threats, whether it be outside threats from, non-state actors or unstable governments where terrorists might come in and try to acquire those biological materials to create biological weapons, or we're concerned about an insider threat, a laboratorian, a technician, a security person, custodian who might have a grudge or who might be being coerced into doing something that they don't want to do, taking unsecure biological materials and trying to give them off to the wrong people. We also were concerned about, sort of accidental releases where maybe waste wasn't treated best and would get released. So the laboratory is a very risky area when it comes to trying to ensure global health security. But we also try to handle it from the other side, from naturally occurring pathogens. Just a part of, just nature. We have naturally occurring outbreaks. There are some diseases that we have eradicated here in other developed countries that aren't quite eradicated in other countries. So it's important that we try to reduce those incidents and those prevalence of those diseases so that any terrorists or, again, I say actors, bad guys or bad people, excuse me, we go in and try to get effective biological materials just from nature to try to synthesize biological weapons.
That's interesting. When you mentioned a natural occurrence, and this brings me back to our first episode in this podcast series was with Dr. Millie Eidson, and she wrote about a fictional character who is a young public health veterinarian, and the first thing she's out doing is essentially investigating anthrax, which occurred naturally in the deserts of New Mexico.
Yeah.
So if you haven't read that book, you should.
A little bit. I mentioned in the forward. So another one of the cool things I've been able to do networking in my veterinary career.
No way. Oh, okay.
Absolutely.
All right. So there you go. I have another comment then. 2001. So we were attacked in the United States, but do you remember what happened earlier? And this wasn't your bailiwick necessarily because it was 2001. My goodness, 11 years before you graduated, 10 years before you graduated. And foot and mouth disease in the United Kingdom. Did you end up studying about that through some of your courses at all about what happened in Great Britain?
Absolutely, we did. We talked a lot about it. One of the things was just the mass euthanasia and devastation that it caused. Just in
devastation was beyond belief. They didn't. It was so interesting. It affected them on very many levels. One of which nobody can even think about was tourism. It shut down tourism. People couldn't come out and see, stacks of dead carcasses, just carcasses piled, and they're like, oh, we can't have any tourists. And so there was on multiple levels, but they never really ascertained how it necessarily started. Was it an accident and spread through the country so rapidly, even though they kept trying to throw up a ring around it and contain it by doing, as you said, the mass euthanasia. So we are trying to avoid that ever happening again anywhere. And this is some of the things that you are involved with in Sandia Laboratory as your role there.
Not necessarily those natural occurring outbreaks, because we leave those to those governments. We were more concerned about trying to reduce those biological, chemical, like those terroristic attacks. And but a part of that is, rather than me or like my colleagues being hand-on and responding to an outbreak, we would work with other governments to improve their response, whether that be helping build infrastructure, training, or even drills and tabletop exercises. And that's what we got a chance to do. We got a chance to go to a lot of different countries and try to find out how did their systems work? How did their human medicine, animal medicine, how did their laboratory staffs, and how did their epidemiological staffs all communicate and work together to try to reduce outbreak threats?
Oh, wow. That sounds like it was a fascinating time for you. What did you do after that? And how did that career opportunity open itself to you after Sandia Lab?
Okay. Well, my time in Albuquerque was starting to come towards the end, and I was looking for a bit of a change. And so I'd already done a lot of work on the international level. Where I said, well, hey, let me go and try. And when I did some work on the national level at that point, I said, well, hey, let me go and try to do some work on the state level. And so I had an opportunity arise where I was the assistant state veterinarian for the state of Arizona in Arizona Department of Agriculture in Phoenix, Arizona.
Oh, how delightful. So the state level as a veterinarian. And I did see at some point too that you were doing some type of presentations as a public speaker. Is this something that's part of your bailiwick of skills that you've developed?
Yeah, it is. I've been pretty fortunate to do a lot of trainings. And so being able to speak and communicate with people has kind of come easier during that process. And so there are always opportunities to try to connect with people and try to learn, especially about that particular type of work that I do. Again, being a veterinarian can get your foot into a lot of doors. And so I've gotten the opportunity to speak at international symposiums, even as far as Kuwait. I've gotten a chance to present in Buenos Aires, Argentina, for the OIE. I've gotten published in an OIE journal. Definitely got a chance to spread veterinary medicine and public health, the gospel of public health, in a lot of different avenues.
And OIE, will you just tell us what those initials mean, and I'll drop them in the show notes as well.
The Office of Internationals Epizooties. It's French, but it's basically the WHO for animals.
Very good. So how fascinating. And did you enjoy those public speaking engagements?
Absolutely, I do. Like I said, you always have a captive audience when you're a veterinarian. In a lot of those spaces, some of those spaces were veterinarians, but the vast majority of those spaces were people who were not in veterinary medicine. So I always had a captive audience that was always interested in the kind of work that I do. But anytime I talk about the work that I do, even to other veterinarians, they're interested because, for so many of us, we're just programmed into thinking that it's all about small animal medicine, but it's just so much more to veterinary medicine.
Yeah. So working as the state veterinarian, what does that involve? We have a couple of our previous people on our channel here who have done that, but what happened particularly during the time when you were a state veterinarian?
So sort of the same building as I was working, well, not physically, figuratively, the same building, but a different floor. And so when it came to the state level, we were more concerned about our response to our different threats. That job in particular, working in Phoenix, Arizona for the state of Arizona, brought a unique set of challenges because I was focusing more on emergency management and preparedness because we were located near a nuclear power plant. And so we were kind of concerned about the possible release of any sort of radioactive material. And there's a lot of agricultural entities, buildings, and animals in that area. Spent a lot of time networking and working with a lot of different departments, a lot of different jurisdictions, public and private sector, trying to come together when it came to planning and response. So that was invaluable experience to kind of show me yet another aspect of veterinary medicine and public health.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hearing from you. One of the things that I think we enjoy as veterinarians, that every day is something different and new because of all the different animals that we see. But what you're telling me is that even in regulatory medicine, every day is something new and exciting. There's very many different things that you see on a daily basis that makes a day far more interesting than any kind of other job that you would have. What did you do after that, and what brought that opportunity to your door?
I ended up sort of a bit of a homecoming, just sort of circumstance and happenstance. Everything came together at the same time I was looking, and so positions came free with the USDA again, with APHIS and veterinary services. So now after I'd done that work on the international level, and I had done a lot of the emergency preparedness and planning on the state level, I thought I was a good candidate and eventually accepted the job as emergency manager, emergency coordinator for the USDA APHIS veterinary services in Ohio.
So that's where you are now, and you got there in the middle of a pandemic. How has the pandemic affected your job?
Well, full disclosure, I worked that job for about a year, and the way that the pandemic sort of has modified our work environment didn't quite work for me. And I tell you, I really enjoy work. And so constantly having to connect with people from all these different jurisdictions and all these different states, because I was working on a regional level. So I was working in about 5 states, and all these different personnel and all these different personalities that I could not get any hands-on or face-to-face time with.
Right. Yeah.
That's sort of the challenge and the nature of the beast these days. But I just found that wasn't quite working for me. So I'm no longer working there. I've actually been doing a lot more freelance work and going back into the international game.
Oh, okay. So is this where your own personal business comes into play? The Brass Corp? Okay. Yes. So tell me what is involved with your own company.
Well, I'm able, because I've acquired a lot of experience. I've been very flexible when it came to job locations. I have a varied work experience. I have a varied educational background as well. And so it seems to have gotten to a point where my knowledge is valuable and I'm able to consult on a lot of different areas and arenas. And so what it kind of started out as sort of a part-time sort of side hustle where I was putting...
Which all veterinarians somehow are involved with that. Just so everyone knows, now it feels like either we have so much energy and lots of time, even though we're working a full-time job, everyone is doing usually at least one other job or maybe two. So this was sort of a side hustle. Now it's become the thing. Okay.
Yeah. Right. And again, I'm not on here to tell any stories. I'm on here to be completely honest and forthcoming. I did not feel like financially I was able, combined with when it came to my salary, combined with my student loan debt burden, I did not feel like my compensation was enough to give me the quality of life that I needed.
100%. Yes.
Just
No,
working
yeah.
hour week.
Yeah. Yeah. No, this is exactly true. Despite you working hard on getting scholarships, despite working and saving for college, you were in that same position that many veterinary students had, where you had to take out loans. And then you get out and you're working, and all of a sudden you're looking at your paycheck and you're realizing your student loan could be half of that paycheck when you're paying it back. I know that was true for me even many years ago. I cannot even fathom what it is right now, because when I look at how much money the student debt is coming out of school nowadays, it looks like it pretty much is a mortgage, and you bought a house, but you really don't have a mortgage. You don't have the equity. You can't, I mean, you're making like a house payment every month. And you have to have additional jobs. Full disclosure, yes, veterinarians, whether they're in private practice or what have you, they are up to the hilt in debt just from education alone quite often. So that brought you to your, as you said, full disclosure on why you developed a side hustle. And now you're able to work with that as a full-time type of gig and meet your needs, right?
Right. Not only my financial needs, but my emotional needs, my spiritual needs, my personal needs. You know, I think a lot of us identify very strongly with being a veterinarian, but more to me than being a veterinarian. And so because veterinarian, it encompasses a lot of things, but it's basically a career. And so if that's the only thing that you have going on, or if that's your only source of fulfillment, ultimately your job is, or your career is the only thing where you're getting fulfillment. And that's just not gonna, that's a fast way to get burnt out very, very fast, because there's just natural challenges to any position, but particularly veterinary medicine, some unique challenges. And that's why I fear that some of my colleagues have kind of gotten lost in their path, just because they have focused all of their, and I've done it, I've been guilty of it the same. You put all your eggs in the basket when it comes to veterinary medicine.
Yes, exactly. And again, too, when you're saddled with an enormous amount of debt, the pressure is unbelievable sometimes. I fully comprehend that myself. And then at this point, I love, you're the first one who really has said that you are at a point in your life where your emotional, spiritual needs are satisfied, and as well, because this is the direction, this is the path you've built for yourself. Veterinary medicine allowed you to do that. Can you tell us a little bit about how a person could contact you and what your consultation would involve? What do your customers or clients look like? What do they seek from you? What can you do?
Well, I do some relief work. So even though I was trained and specialized in food and animal medicine, I still have the knowledge and ability to go into small animal clinics and work.
Oh,
and
yes.
so and to do that, and those opportunities are widely available due to the shortage.
Yep.
But I also contract work directly with contractors with the United States government who implement a lot of different projects that need that wide and varied expertise in veterinary medicine, public health, regulatory medicine, and international diplomacy and work. And so I've been able to fill in some of those roles as well.
That's where the consultation part comes in. Yes. And that's so interesting that you mentioned that. I was talking to a colleague the other day, and we were discussing how we quite often fall back onto doing relief work, working in small animal medicine, just kind of not just to keep our skills up, but to get that puppy time in as well as to get a nice little paycheck that boom, just, kind of financially, for your financial health, it just zings right in there and helps out a bit. So it's a great chance to do that. And the need is so great, as you said right now. So do you have a way that somebody could get in touch with you if they did need for either of those purposes, like your email, your website, your phone number? Are all those things that we can put down in the show notes and be able to have available for people to contact you?
Absolutely. Just one more note, one more disclosure before I go. I always want to make sure I lay it out everywhere, and like I say, you kind of get the idea too, because you say you have experience in it. There are pluses and minuses to everything. So when it comes to working for myself and freelancing, there are pluses to it. I feel like I have a lot more flexibility. I feel like I have a lot more control. I feel like my setting is always changing, so that keeps things more interesting. But on the minus side, it's a little bit less stability. I don't always get a paycheck every week, every 2 weeks or so. Sometimes I have projects that get delayed, and then it puts a gap into things. Sometimes my schedule has to be a little bit firmer, for some things. Sometimes I have to plan far in advance because I lose a bit of spontaneity. So there are pluses and minuses to everything. But those are the sort of things that I think come with it. And those things are the sort of things that people can help to navigate. I think that's one of my blessings and one of my sort of purposes. Because so many different people help me out along the way, I'm more than willing to speak to and help anybody with anything that they might need. So if anybody wants to contact me, they can reach me by email. It's my name, van.brass@gmail.com, or you can also link with me just through text, 239-246-2946.
Oh, thank you so much. And I want to also tell everyone that Van is highly involved with our American Association of Food Safety and Public Health Veterinarians. He's on our student outreach committee. And so this, again, is an example of the type of mentorship we do have available with our association. And I dare I say that even your colleagues who are out right now and have heard your wonderful story here over the past almost an hour, that they will have the opportunity to connect with you and talk to you about any ideas they might like to think about doing for the future. So you're saying you're available to talk to any of your colleagues as well as veterinary students, right?
Absolutely. More than happy to help. As I said, so many people help me along the way that I'm more than willing to help anybody that needs it. Please
Oh, that's
reach out.
fantastic. I'm so glad to hear it. The best thing about doing these interviews is I get to see where everybody is along their path, and that they have taken advantage of everything that veterinary medicine has to offer. And you bring something into play faster than any of them have done. You've been out of school about 11 years now or so, and you are in a position that has brought you a lot of satisfaction already. And I think we have to all be aware that it's not just about sticking your nose to the grindstone. It's about really stopping for a moment and seeing what you can do in this current time period that is going to be fulfilling for you. And I think we forget that when we get onto that hamster wheel of vet school and then out working and trying to pay for bills. And what you've said is, no, it's time to stop. Let's take a look. Let me get that moment where I can enjoy the moment and enjoy my life and still be able to meet physical needs of finances and so forth. So it's not because, folks, it's not about becoming, wealthy. It's not about becoming, retired in your field. It's about enjoying the trip along the way. Am I saying that right, Van?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So I want to thank you for bringing that aspect into our careers, our talk about the time we're talking here about careers, because I am so I'm so invested in that concept right now, even though I'm at what would be termed the end of my career. I am really at that point as well. And I want to tell everyone, no matter where you are in your career, and if you are a veterinary student or thinking about going into veterinary medicine, remember the end goal is what we're talking about right now. it's the trip, it's the journey, it's enjoying your time and making it as fulfilling as possible, as well as enjoyable. So
Life
with
is a
that,
highway. Just bring a map. Just plan. You can get.
yeah, I venture to guess that you did not actually know that you were going to take this interesting path to where you are. That was not, it was not a plan. Everyone says that. Me too.
I still don't know where I'm going, but I'm just gonna grab hold and be ready.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, opportunities may arise. I think I'm going to talk to you offline and tell you where I am right now and what opportunities you can envision that I could take advantage of as well. So thank you so much. I love this time when I get to talk to my colleagues in our association. And I feel like I walk away from these interviews with a new friend as well as a colleague. So I want to remind everyone that I'm going to put the contact information for Dr. van.brass in the show notes, and you will find us on our YouTube channel as well as our podcast for American Association of Food Safety and Animal Health Veterinarians. Thank you all today for being here and joining us. And if you have any questions, just shoot me a question off of our channels. Thanks.